Welcome back. It's taco time. I'm going to show you guys how I serve up nutrient-dense, blood sugar balancing tacos in the Levesque house, how I maximize nutrients by mixing in a little ground liver and heart, and how I lower the blood sugar effects by opting for grain-free tortillas that have a lower net carbohydrate. So let's get started. There is not a delicious taco night without a freshly made guacamole, and we keep it simple here. I use avocados, garlic, lime juice, and salt. That simple flavor really brings out the spicy meat and gives you that fatty mouthfeel you're looking for. So again, you know I'm not a fan of long, large recipes. You can eyeball this anywhere between 4 and 6 avocados. Say for every 4 avocados, I'd add at least 1 garlic clove minced. And then you're gonna add the juice of 1 whole lime for every 4 avocados. One thing you wanna note with avocados is their fiber content. So avocados have 10 grams of fiber per avocado. And the sad fact is most Americans get only 15 grams of fiber a day. And the recommendation for a woman of my size and age is 25 grams. And Americans are having a hard time hitting that. And that's because they're not plating up fiber and greens. But this is a great alternative to add to your plate if you're not a super big fan of veggies. Delicious fat, guacamole, avocado with eggs, however you like it. This is a great way to get more fiber into your diet and to meet those requirements. They believe that our ancestors ate somewhere around 100 grams of fiber a day. And we can't even hit 25, we're hitting 15. So plate up your avocados, add guacamole to your plate. This is a wonderful source of healthy fat, monounsaturated fat, great source of fiber to keep you full. And I think it just makes everything more delicious. So this guacamole is simply avocados, garlic cloves, lime juice, and salt. I love garlic, so I'm gonna add 2 large cloves. A great and easy way to get the skin or the paper off the garlic clove is to slam down on the garlic clove with the flat side of your knife, and then it just comes right off. Again, just letting that garlic sit on top of these avocados to maximize the antimicrobial and antifungal benefits of garlic. So we are activating allicin, that compound present inside of garlic that gives it that pungent smell. So I did 2 large garlic cloves, 4 avocados. I'm gonna juice a lime. If you wanna get the most juice out of your lime, give it a little roll on your cutting board before slicing it open and juicing it on top. And I'm actually gonna juice it to the side to, again, keep that chemical reaction happening with the enzymes inside the garlic cloves. So there is our guac, little salt. So we waited about 5 minutes for the chemical reaction to happen and allow for the allicin to be produced. And now we're just mashing it up. Next up, we're gonna make a pico de gallo. This is super easy. Tomato, onion, jalapeno, lime juice, cilantro, and salt. That's it. Again, one of my favorite recipes because it doesn't need one. You can just eyeball, does it look like I have enough tomatoes, onions, and cilantro? If it's a little too spicy with the jalapeno, squeeze a little bit more lime juice. If you want more of a brighter flavor, add a little bit more salt. So the key is getting the seeds out. I always like to take my tomatoes and use my finger just to take as many of the seeds out as possible before I even cut the tomato. And if it's a really ripe tomato, like ripe off the vine, these came from my grow bed, they are quite ripe, I'll use a serrated knife to make that cutting a little bit easier. So just take the seeds out, use a serrated knife so you don't cut yourself, and chop everything up, throw it in the bowl. We'll squeeze some lime juice, hit it with some salt, and we'll be good to go. One tip with cilantro, if you're using the leaves, it's very flavorful. When you start adding the stems, it gets a little bit bitter. A lot of times I'm moving really quickly and a little bit of the stems end up in either my tacos or my pico or whatever recipe I'm adding it to, but I would try your best to pull as many leaves off as you can, and look for any thick, big stems and remove those so that you don't get that bitter flavor. So once you pull all your leaves off, you can give them a slight little roll and chop them fine. So you want to be careful with jalapenos. They can be quite hot. So I always recommend trying it. Seeing the level of heat and then determining how much you're gonna add. If you break up the jalapeno in quarters, I always start with about a quarter. You can always add more, but it's really hard to get it out if you've added too much. And remember that the seeds are the spiciest part. So if you want it a little more mild, but you want sort of that mild heat, start with a quarter, dice it up without the seeds, and your whole family will be able to enjoy it. Last but not least, let the flavors come together. Little homemade pico. My favorite way to sneak liver into my family's diet is in this taco recipe. I blend 1 pound of traditional grass-fed beef with the Ancestral blend from Force of Nature, and their Ancestral blends mix liver and heart. So this is the grass-fed beef. They have bison. You can get it at Whole Foods or online at forceofnature.com. I get a box delivered to my house. Subscription makes it super easy. But what I love is that I am consistently eating liver, which is nature's multivitamin. It contains 1,000% vitamin A, 1,000% of the B12 you need, 100% selenium, iron, and copper. And copper helps absorb iron. So they work synergistically to elevate the nutrient density in your body by eating organ meats and liver. And our ancestors of the past incorporated these all the time. And it is something that we don't see very often. So this makes it really easy for me to get consistent with it and to have my clients get consistent eating and enjoying liver in their diet without even really knowing it. So mix a pound of the Ancestral blend with a pound of grass-fed beef, add your taco seasonings, and this is something you can do weekly to up your nutrient density. Let's fire it up. All right, medium-high heat. I'm gonna take my wood utensil and break up the meat. And the seasoning is gonna be chili powder, smoked paprika, garlic, salt. And again, I wanna encourage you to get in your kitchen, shake the seasonings on, trust yourself, promise you can't mess this up. And you'll notice that I'm using an enamel cast iron. A recent study showed that a single scratch on a Teflon pan can release up to 9,000 PUFA particles, and these are endocrine disrupting chemicals that impact our health, but a broken surface can release up to 2 million nanoparticles. So salt your meat. It's gonna bring out the flavor. And if you're really looking for a recipe, 2 tablespoons of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. Onion's optional, depending on if you like that. I'm gonna eyeball it. And a great way to get used to this is to throw your seasonings on, cook your ground beef, give it a taste, and see where you might wanna tinker with your recipe. The smoked paprika brings in the smoky flavor, the chili brings the heat, and the garlic and onion round it out. And again, with the liver in this mix, you may wanna up the smoked paprika or the garlic or the onion to cover the flavor just a little bit. Other additions, if you like it spicy, red pepper flakes, earthy, you can add a little cumin. So of course you could make a Fab Four taco bowl without a tortilla and not have any processed food in your diet. But if you are interested in having your tacos in a real tortilla, then I want to teach you how to differentiate products at the grocery store and understand how they impact your blood sugar and where you should aim to be averaging your net carbohydrates when it comes to processed foods. I have a lot of tortilla options here that I love, and I've also purchased one that I wouldn't normally purchase just to show you how we differentiate product. So Tortillas are an acellular carbohydrate. They start as a flour, which means they digest very quickly. They can have a massive impact on your blood sugar. They're digested quickly. They spike your blood sugar fast. And so really starting to understand how much you're getting in one sitting of net carbohydrates is important. So let's take a look. We look at total carbohydrate first. This is a flour tortilla, and it's 18 grams of total carbohydrates with 1 gram of fiber. So we subtract out that fiber. Fiber doesn't break down to blood sugar, so that's why I love fiber so much, but it's 17 net carbohydrates for one tortilla. So you get away with one tortilla with this one. And then I have a couple cassava flour tortilla options. Now these are averaging 22 and 24 total carbohydrates with 4 grams of fiber for one and 1 gram of fiber in the other. They're averaging 20 grams of fiber for 2 tortillas, not one. So I'd much rather have 2 cassava flour tortillas versus 1 traditional wheat flour tortilla. Now, the next thing you're gonna look at when it comes to differentiating product is ingredients. Ingredients matter. So for example, in this cassava tortilla, there's organic cassava flour, which is a root, water, coconut oil, and sea salt. All ingredients you recognize, that's really important. And the net carbohydrates for 2 is rounding out around 20. Now, when I'm working with clients and we're talking about processed foods, I really like their averages per meal to be somewhere between 20 and 40 at the most. Net carbohydrates coming from processed foods. When it comes to all the other cellular carbohydrates, that's your fiber and greens. That's the pico, the tomatoes, the onions, the guacamole, all of these wonderful foods that are delivered in a fiber cell. I think it's the way nature's intended for us to eat, because fiber wraps around sugar and starch, and we have to chew and digest through that to slowly release our blood sugar. You can think about it like a slow drip versus something that we've processed outside of our body that's going to be digested very quickly and cause our blood sugar to go up really fast. So the best way to keep blood sugar balanced is to plate up the Fab Four of all the things that don't break down to blood sugar or break down really slowly because they're fiber and greens. And then when it comes to choosing these acellular carbohydrates, learning to differentiate at the grocery store by ingredient and by net carbohydrate, because that allows you to have a little bit more fun. Now, if I were to open these up in the Levesque household and heat them up, I would probably still want 2 tortillas. I'd still want 2 tacos to feel full. And so I can have all that fun for the same amount of net carbohydrates. And an example I give my clients is to think about whatever they're eating, the net carbohydrate number. So for example, these almond flour tortillas, 20 carbohydrates, 3 grams of fiber. We subtract out that fiber. It's at 17 net carbohydrates for 2 tortillas. I picture 17 little almond flour tortillas floating in my bloodstream. That's my blood sugar going up. And then it's coming down with the help of insulin being put away in my liver and my muscles. And so 17 is not a large number, and I still feel like, oh, it was so fun and delicious and filling. And that's really important. Another thing to note, when you're having acellular carbohydrates, because they break down so quickly, you really want to pair those with a protein, fat, and fiber. So make sure that you're eating these with your Fab Four meals. How are we adding the fun to the plate without dysregulating blood sugar? And this is the best way to do it. So loving these cassava flour tortillas and almond flour tortillas for allowing me to have a little bit more fun with the same amount of blood sugar impact. Okay, time to plate up our tacos. Meat, guac, pico, lettuce, and we're ready. And by simply making a few swaps, we swapped out the tortilla, we're lowering our net carbohydrates, we're keeping blood sugar balanced, swapping out 1 of our pounds of ground beef for the Ancestral blend, adding in that liver and heart, we're upping the nutrient density, adding nutrients like vitamin A, B12, iron, copper, selenium, CoQ10. There's so much goodness in these tacos, but it looks just like your regular Taco Tuesday.